Oh,
Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. You ever wonder why you do the things you do? Well, sometimes you have to really think about it to see how much sense we're putting into it, or if we are just, well, anyway. Our speaker today is Dr. Robert Martin, and he is sharing with us about how to balance our work life so that we can balance our life. So welcome everyone, and we will turn it right over to you, Robert, and find out how you're going to help us to balance our life in general as well as our work.
well, I'm always trying to help myself, because it's like walk the walk before you talk the talk. Okay, that's my basic thing, is like practice what you preach, and preferably don't preach at all, just share what you're trying to do yourself. And so that's what I'm doing this morning, is trying to share what I'm doing myself, and a few things that I hope that we'll be able to discuss in a few minutes. Okay, I'm ready to start screen sharing. And I prefer to just talk without using PowerPoint, but I've found that for me, I'm very discursive. It keeps me on track. So it's not so much for you all, but it's for me to keep me on track so that I don't take extra time here.
It's ready to go. There you go.
Okay, now. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so just if there's anybody new, I'm Robert Martin, and I'm a psychologist, both a kind of counseling psychologist and an educational psychologist. So my big interest is in teaching and learning, but you don't have to be a teacher to profit from this. This really applies to everyone. So today we're going to be talking about attention and vision, because the vision that we have directs our attention, and that influences how we see the whole world and how we act in the world. So the question is, which I'm addressing in all of these, how can we balance our personal time and our work so that we can thrive? And I think that's a big thing for all of us. And I know it's certainly been true for me. Okay. So there are four things we're going to talk about, because vision isn't just about a vision by itself, but it's about responsibility and choice, and the mental pictures we have, and the planning and designing we do, and then taking action, all fit into this. So it's a big circular kind of thing. So we need to accept responsibility for all our actions and our feelings, our attitudes, and even the world that we're living in, which is pretty scary. And this is something I think that Glasser has pointed out many times. The whole idea of taking responsibility for your anxiety or your depression by saying, well, wait a minute, it's me. This isn't happening to me. I'm the one who's depressing. I'm the one who's anxietying. And that's really scary. People don't want to take responsibility. So there are three different people that I've been influenced. One is my teacher, Heinz von Forster, who was always pointing out responsibility is unpopular, but it's the basis of our being able to change the world that we have made, because the world that we live in is mostly an artificial world. And also Gabor Mate, who says the basis of healing ourselves is accepting responsibility for the trauma that we have gone through, because the trauma is not what happened to us, but even though we didn't have intentional control, it's something that we did to respond to our situation. And then finally, William Glasser, who continually pointed out we need to accept responsibility for all of our behavior, because that's what gives us the power to change. So because when we take responsibility, everything we do becomes a choice. And seeing that is a big thing. So the second thing is the mental pictures. Well, how do we know what our mental pictures are? Well, one of those things is by asking questions like, where do we feel belonging? Or where do we feel in control of our choices? Where do we enjoy learning and having fun? Where do we feel free? These are questions that I've asked everybody that I've ever counseled, whether they were children or adults, whether they were students or whether they were teachers or retired teachers. And that is, how are you meeting your basic needs? Because that's where we find out, and you find out, what your mental pictures are of what your basic needs are. And then planning, what am I going to do about it? And that includes not just the planning of like, well, what am I going to do about this one thing, but how can I design the environment and the activities, and if I'm a teacher, the assignments that I give others and how I set up their schedule. And if I'm not a teacher, what are the assignments I give myself and how I schedule myself, so that this gives me more control over my planning. So we don't want to just plan, we also want to plan how we plan. And that's what designing is all about. And again, this is a basic part of choice theory. And then finally, action. What am I going to do about it? And I love this. I couldn't find it anywhere, but if any of you know where it is, please let me know. So I don't put it here as a quote, but I remember Bill Glasser saying many times, the problem with a good idea is that you have to do it. Meaning, well, it's fine to have good ideas, but they don't mean a thing until you implement them. So the point here is that all of these things are a cycle. They're circular. We have to accept responsibility and develop our mental pictures, design and make plans, and then take action. And the thing is, we can jump into this anywhere, and we're never cured. We're never done. We're never up on shore. This is a lifelong process. I can't tell you, well, I learned how to do it and now I'm done. It's like, no, every day is a new day, and every week and every month and every year, it's a continual process. So one of the things we want to think about is, does our vision enable us to be who we are and to become what we're capable of being? And now, well, wait a minute, what the heck does that mean? Well, I'm going to go into that a little bit here. And that is, we talked last time about thriving, and that is, it's not enough, as my teacher said, as my mentor said, it's not enough to survive. You need to find a way to thrive. And in order to do that, you need to create a satisfying life. Well, what makes a satisfying life? And here we get to a very interesting answer. A satisfying life is one where we're overcoming difficulties and continuing to grow. there is no easy and satisfying life. There's only a difficult and satisfying life. In other words, if we're going to grow, then we have to choose difficulty. And if you choose serving others, like being a teacher, a counselor, doing anything that involves other people, then it's like there are always plenty of difficulties. And so it's always challenging. So the element of every vision and every experience that leads to a satisfying career, all the research says two things. These are the things that matter. It's not money, it's not wealth or fame or any of these, or even good health, but rather meaning and relationship. We need to focus on what creates meaning for us, what creates relationships. Meaning, where do you find meaning at work? Where do you find meaning outside of work? And those are the places you need to focus on. And interestingly enough, I saw this little YouTube video on the longitudinal Harvard study, maybe you've seen this, that says happiness, this is all about relationships. They started with college sophomores and focused on following them through into their 70s. And what they found was, again, I mean, if you go to Harvard, well, you're expecting that you'll be very successful and make lots of money and achieve some fame and whatever. But what they found is the people who were most successful were not the happiest. The people who were happiest were the people who had the best relationships. And in fact, the least unhappy person was a person who had chosen to become a high school teacher, which makes sense to me because that's an area where if you're good at it, you use all your skills and everything you know. One of my colleagues and friends who was a university president of our university and of a medical school and who had been a high school teacher came to visit my intern class, and I said, okay, tell them what they need to succeed. And he said, it's all about get to know the students, get to know the parents. It's all about relationships. For me, designing a life around relationships of teaching and writing and creating have been very satisfying because it's involved every ability, skill, and bit of knowledge and every expertise that I ever had. And I'm constantly having to learn new things. Getting a degree, getting several degrees, which was just the start. So coming back to picking up a few odds and ends, that creating this vision involves these three things: questions, mental pictures, and new experiences. The questions, asking ourselves and getting other people to ask ourselves, where are we meeting our basic needs? And we need to do that on a regular basis and prioritizing which one do I need to be selecting now. And the funny thing is people always know of these four, which one do you need to be doing now? And you usually know. And then how about mental pictures? How do you develop new mental pictures? Glasser, I can remember him saying, well, we never start out in life having enough new mental pictures, having enough mental pictures. We have to develop new ones. We need to be open to new things. We need to design and plan new experiences. And we need to work at being comfortable with being uncomfortable. My experience as a counselor and a therapist is people run from anything that's going to cause them discomfort. And if it's going to help us grow, then we should run toward discomfort, not a way, because anything that helps us grow always challenges us. And the more you run toward discomfort, the more it disappears. And discomfort is very seldom dangerous. It's very seldom illegal, very seldom unethical. And I try to avoid danger, unethical, and all of those kinds of things. And at the worst, it might be embarrassing. And to do what I'm doing today, it's basically what I learned as a teacher and a presenter is like, if you're not willing to make a fool of yourself, don't bother getting up and presenting because you won't be able to do it. You'll be too stiff. So once we have these visions, then we can develop goals and strategies and plans. The problem is that while goals shape our attention and meaning and decisions and behavior, they can be difficult, and I'll get into that. But first, what you need to remember is that why do we need goals is because goals are what give us a satisfying life. When we're working on a goal, that's what boosts our adrenaline and our sense of satisfaction. It's not actually meeting a goal, as we all know. Meeting a goal, whether it's a small goal or a big goal, it's like when we meet the goal, we're satisfied for a day, a week, or a month, but then it's like, oh, we start getting a surge of dissatisfaction. So it's actually working on goals that make us satisfied, but they need to be our own goals based on our own visions. So we resist goals laid down by others. And this, if you have a job, you're always getting goals laid down by others. And then you find yourself resisting. I know a lot of teachers resist doing lesson planning because it's like, well, I'm required to do that, so I don't want to do it. Rather than, hey, this is my opportunity to design what I want to focus on and to design on succeeding. When you feel like you're being micromanaged, then you're unhappy. And you have to have great courage. A friend of mine, this is also one of my students, who basically said, well, I just blew everything off you ever said and until he got into teaching. And then he decided, oh, he kind of got into the things that we've talked about here. And he would take his students out on and I visited him while he was doing this. His students are out on the front lawn of the school, and they've marked out they're in groups, and they've marked out each a yard of lawn. And then they're counting the number of blades of grass, the number of different kinds of weeds, the number of plants. They're counting if there are any bugs, all of this kind of thing, because he's teaching science. And the principal sees him out there and kind of talks to him and says, well, now, you need to really be focusing on the curriculum, that the students need to get high test scores and so on. And he says, yes, I know that, and I agree. And these students will be as high or higher than other students as a group in the district. So they will do well on these high, but it takes great courage to say those kinds of things. So the point is that administrators tend to make everything and to make everything important. And the point is, there's always time for what's most important, but there's never time for everything. So you have to judge that. And then you have to have great courage. And then you have to design what you're going to focus on. So you need to ask, well, okay, once I figure out what's most important, then you figure out what can I do about it and when. You don't need to figure it out all at once. But to me, these are the two basic classroom questions that come from reality therapy. What can I do about it? And when can I get started on this? So here's an example. You can use write, pair, share, which is a strategy that involves 2 students at a time to process a key idea that they need to succeed in the class and on the curriculum and on high stakes tests. And as you get better at doing group skills like think, pair, share, write, pair, share, then you're doing what's above here, and that is involving students in activity that are meeting their needs and involving them in learning of the big ideas and key skills they need to succeed. And it's meeting our needs to do something that's creating a community of learners that's creating relationships with us and with each other. And that takes a lot of courage to do. So, conclusions. And I like to conclude with a bunch of questions. And that is, first is to think about our own desires. We learn very young that desires are subjective, not objective. They're not real, they're not what counts, but yet they're the basis of our vision and who we are and what we do. And not only that, but they're the basis of humanity's ability to create the world in which we live, the world of science and technology, the network of ideas. That all comes from the desires of our ancestors and all of those people around us and ourselves. And finally, I would say, and this is the big thing about responsibility, if you have a lot of responsibility to do well and succeed, then great responsibility has to come with great freedom to succeed. And if you're being micromanaged, then you just have to take that responsibility and that freedom for yourself, as my science teacher friend and former student did, to say, I have experience, I do this every year, the students will succeed, and I've got this covered. So wherever we have great responsibility in a job, that we have to take great freedom in order to get the job done. So here are some questions. Where do I need to take action, even though it's uncomfortable? And that's true on the job and in our own lives. I was telling Mona that yesterday I just signed up for my wife and I to go kayaking in Iceland in September. So that was one of the more challenging day excursions on this vacation that we're going to take in September. What can I do that I've never done before? Well, I've done lots of kayaking, but I've never done it in, and that's, it's a little scary, but it's like, I'll be okay. Where can I empower myself and others to accept responsibility and make choices and overcome difficulties? So it's choosing, it's making the hard choice. And it doesn't have to be terribly uncomfortable, just a little uncomfortable. And the point here is we can use the same strategies to help ourselves and others thrive, whether they're first graders or adults. The skills, we can use them with ourselves and with others. So I don't do anything in counseling or teaching or presenting that I don't use with myself. And I love giving these presentations. I'm so grateful at being able to give these because it helps me clarify these ideas for myself. And it helps me reinforce these, yes, these are the things I need to be doing. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. You want to stop sharing your screen?
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, and we appreciate you very much, Robert. It was really 1, 2, 3 that we could bite into and make some good sense of it. And I love the fact that you talk about it being not one and done, but a lifelong process.
Well, right. Exactly. Yes. Which I can say that now since I'm not only older, but I'm retired and but I'm failing retirement because I've got all these projects.
I love that. Absolutely love that you're failing retirement. So we're going to be closing this down. We're going to ask for people to give some input, but I'd like right off the board for everyone to give some kind of an input on what you have been resisting that you're going to stop and or where you're going to take action. So if everyone would just give a little 1 or 2 sentences to what you are resisting or where you're going to take the action that Robert has so beautifully laid out for us.
Okay, I'll start. I'm on a board of my authors group, and I haven't been attending meetings lately for a variety of reasons. And I'm the secretary, and I was going to resign, but one of my colleagues convinced me to try again, and also your ideas about going towards the uncomfortable will make you will make you more comfortable eventually. So I like that. I'm going to keep that in mind. Thank you, Robert.
All right, thanks. Alan, that was good. I'm going to be more in getting it out there instead of being so timid. You know, if they like it, fine. If they don't, to each his own. Okay, someone else? What action are you going to take, or what are you going to put off resisting? What are you going to do that you've never done before? Wendell?
I think he was telling me to unmute.
Oh, okay, Rose.
So I have this knock for me to level up, and it seems so activity based. I didn't want to. There's so much requirement. I have to do so much, but I think it's beyond a calling now, and it's a demanding. So I'm going to do the thing that I don't want to do, which is continue working towards building up my skill set and my company. So thank you for that, sir.
All right. All right. Sharon, Sue?
I find myself recently not having time to do anything that I would call just me. You know, it's freedom. It's also fun type things. And just listening to Robert, when Covey first wrote his book, and he was about the 7 habits of high, he said, if you want to do something in your life, you put it in your calendar and you reserve that time. That way it does not get taken. So I've been thinking about this for a while, Robert, and I think this is going to give me the impetus to take action, to put something on my calendar and not to cross it off, keep it there and do it.
All right, very good.
Yeah, and Gabor Mate, by the way, has a whole book on this.
Does he?
Book on normal, the myth of normal, which is like we put ourselves last, we treat ourselves worst. And it's if it's uncomfortable to treat yourself first, even if you need to. Yeah. And that's
Okay.
okay. Like, yeah.
Sue, Wendell, Dave, what are you going to do? Stop resisting, take action. Empower yourself.
Mine was much simpler. This is Sue. Mine was much simpler. I was waiting. There was a movie I wanted to see, and it was like I wanted, I'm waiting for somebody to go with me. And it was funny because I spoke with another girlfriend when I was asking her, would she go? And she went, Sue, I've done this by myself. I've just gone alone, and I'm kind of going, oh my God. I remember when I was a little girl, I remember my mother going to the movies by herself, and I thought, this is just weird, and I thought, So I took the plunge. So I already did it. I took the plunge and I actually went to the IMAX, which is like a giant theater. And I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I loved every minute of it. But it's like, as I was there, I'm going, now, not only was I alone, I was the only person in the whole theater.
Oh,
The only person, the only, completely, totally alone. I could have been in my living room, except it was way more, way better. But now to go over it, then here I was all by myself. And I mean, what are the things that one is afraid of by going, are you afraid because I won't have anybody to talk to? Am I afraid in case something happens? Am I afraid if I fall, like nobody will find me for hours, like what will happen here? And sure enough, somebody, like 2 people came off the elevator, which is like where I was sitting, came off the elevator, and they were just chatting, and they were right behind me. And I thought, oh my God. I grabbed my purse. I thought, oh no, I'm going to get robbed. Somebody's going to, and then I thought I'm annoyed because they're talking. And I went, and they went, oh, And then they left, and I thought, my God, they could have beaten the hoo-ha out of me sitting here shushing them, and nobody would have ever found me, It's like, oh my God. But anyway, it all worked out fine. They shushed and they left. But anyway, that was my big plunge. So that's not, what are the other things that are, I'm not going scuba diving or doing any of that stuff, but that was a big plunge for me. So take it or leave it, just a big plunge. All alone. I've eaten by myself. I've done that by myself. But it's like, going to the movies alone, I don't know, not so much. But anyway, that's my challenge. Did it just recently, so I'm hoping it counts.
all right. Sounds like a good challenge that you stepped up to bat for. So Wendell or Dave, you want to share something? Okay. Well, thanks, Robert. You've did an excellent presentation and had us all to thinking. So we will stop the recording, and then